The Graceview Patient, which is out in October, is I like to call it a hospital gothic. It is a gothic novel set in a contemporary hospital. I like to make that distinction because people who have read The Death of Jane Lawrence are like, "Ooh, is this one also Victorian surgery?" No, no, no. This is very modern. This is actually emphatically post-COVID. One of the main characters is as a former ICU nurse who is burnt out from COVID and is has taken a job in the ward that our main character Meg is on in order to kind of take it slow on her way back into the field. Um, and I actually came at it from a perspective which I think helped make it more than just a pastiche, which is that I wrote it from a place of having actually had a very good hospital stay. When my child was born, about a month early, there was some drama and chaos that resulted in me needing 2 blood transfusions, and I stayed for quite a while. And then he stayed in the NICU. He was actually he was born like full size, and we thought he first didn't go to the NICU, but then he preferred eating over breathing. So whenever he would be drinking milk, he would just start turning blue. So they took him to the NICU. We were there visiting him a lot over the following week and a half until he came home. Now he's doing great. But I had really great care. I really, really liked my nurses. I got along with them. I'm fairly medically literate. I obviously have an obsession with certain medical things. That shows up in my books all the time. And I wanted to tell a story in a hospital where the nurses and doctors and the medical staff aren't the villains. They may not be making things they may be making things more complicated for the main character, but they are there specifically. They're not there twirling their mustache and cackling. They're not there intentionally doing experiments, but they're doing their jobs. They're coming to work and they're trying to take care of a sick patient. So I had to get creative, right? I actually went towards structuring it like a Gothic novel to add that sinister undercurrent and that discomfort and that dread, even though things are going according to protocol. So that meant, it's an old hospital that's been refurbished, but like in the 80s, and it's kind of falling apart. But some places in the hospital are nicer because there was a donor. Um, and there are some areas of the hospital that, yeah, you need to badge in and out of, but there are other parts of the hospital that you don't have to because they just assume no one's going to go there. That tidbit came from a family acquaintance of mine. My mom was in and out of hospitals when I was a kid, and he was one of her nurses. And I reconnected with him to tell him about this book. And he no longer works in hospitals, but for a while he was a surgical nurse. He was worked in surgical nurse, OR nurse, and before he worked in HIV clinics. But he's like, oh yeah, no, there you could just walk down into the morgue at my one hospital. It was just in the basement. Like no one went down there because no one wanted to be down there, but you did not need to use a badge to get in. This was like in 2000, you could just go into the morgue. And so like in place of the creepy groundskeeper, our main character, she's walking off the ward. She's kind of in the general areas of the hospital at night and runs into an environmental services guy, aka a janitor. And she's having a health issue, and not enough that like they need to call somebody, but enough that she wants to get back to bed more quickly than walking all through all the corridors and in the visitors areas. And so he's like, yeah, just go down, go through this subterranean level. That's where all the offices are, the admin offices. And it's a much straighter shot and you can just go up. And I know the hospital that I'm largely basing this off of, just because it's the hospital I was in, so I remember what it was like. I may have gone down there through there with the help of a nurse. I don't want to say much more because she did say not to tell anybody because she might get in trouble. But I was otherwise totally fine, but I was supposed to take a wheelchair and it would have been like a whole chaotic thing. And instead she's like, we'll just go downstairs, and yeah, much more straightforward shot, and then up to the other tower. And so like there's this balance of, okay, here's a very like realistic place, but then also, this environmental services guy who's just helping out, he also fulfills this archetype that we have of the creepy old groundskeeper who knows about the secrets of this place and gives ominous advice that comes back into play later. Yeah, it was a really interesting thing. I ended up running this book by a couple medical professionals to check my medicine in it. And my favorite one was a doctor who she read through it, and her notes were basically she really liked it. And then towards the end, she's like, okay, the only thing is in the epilogue, you do have to say this girl 100% ended up in the ICU for 2 days after the stunts that she pulls in the book. Like just she can be fine now, but just put in a line that she was in the ICU, because that's the only thing that I found totally unrealistic in a not horror plot sense, right? Like there's a certain level that you can do in storytelling that is suspension of disbelief to tell the story, and then there are certain things that take people who have any familiarity with your setting out of it. And there's a lot of people who work in medicine, and I hope that they enjoy this book. So I tried to get it as accurate as I could while still pulling those levers. And I will say, having a character be in um, be admitted, and she's not in like a psych ward or anything. She's in a specialty ward for treating her autoimmune condition with an experimental treatment regimen. Cognition gets weird for people who are in the hospital for a long time, even if their care team is doing the best. Even before you throw in being sick and side effects of medications, the lights are on for a lot of the time. You have a weird sleep schedule. There's beeping all the time. You can hear codes being called. Like, things become very unreal very quickly. There's a thing called ICU delirium, very common. If you're admitted to the ICU at some point, you're probably going to be psychotic for a while, because between the medications and the sleep disruptions, it gets gnarly. And so this is one of my first books that is first person perspective, and it's actually told by Meg looking back over the events that happened in the book and trying to make some narrative sense over what happened to her, because she knows that her memories are not necessarily correct, but no one's helping her figure out what she just went through. So she's, by telling us the story, she's trying to tell herself the story, which I think can be relatable to people who have been hospitalized for various reasons.